Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time it is Underrated, Undervalued Part 8. So I have a stack of books here. As I say in most of these videos, the reason why I chose these particular books is because I feel, you may not feel, but I feel that some of them might be a little underrated. You know what that means is perhaps maybe a character or an event in the book doesn't get enough attention as I feel it should, or it's a little undervalued. A book that you might think might be worth more, or might be going for more money that really isn't. It could be either one of those, or a combination of both of those. But again, I stress, this is my opinion. This is not, gospel. So, I'll start off. And I don't think I included any of these books in previous Underrated, but I have made mistakes before. So if I already showed a book from this video in another Underrated video, I apologize. So let's get started. Here we have Crusade of Comics #1. Now this is one of those early Spawn appearances. CGC and others, I think CBCS and PGX lists Spawn #1 as the first appearance of Spawn. I think a lot of people that are Spawn fans and other people that have a decent knowledge of Spawn might say that Spawn's first appearance is Malibu Sun 13. Others may say it's Rust #1. The point is, there are a lot of, first or previews of Spawn in other books where people begin to argue what is the first true appearance of Spawn. Well, I'm not saying that this one right here is the real first appearance of Spawn. I think it does predate Spawn #1, which is May 1992. But it's just another one of those, like I was talking about, in the same realm as Rust #1, Malibu Sun 13. I think there was even a little comic newspaper that came out that previewed Spawn before Spawn #1 hit the newsstands. So there's so many of them out there. But for those that like to collect those previews of characters, there are people that like to get previews from Marvel, like, when they appeared in Foom and all that. This is one of them to get. Now, before I go to the next book, this, I believe, and those of you that know more about this, you can correct me in the comments, I believe this originally came with a VHS tape. It came out in the early 90s. I think it was a little preview of the character or a preview of something else, whatever it was. But I believe this originally came with a VHS tape. I don't have that. And I think it was, I don't remember when exactly. I think it was one of the last comic shows I went to. That was on the wall. Now, granted, it wasn't going for, I don't think it was. It would have caught my eye. I don't think it was going for a ton of money, but it was on the wall. So maybe some people are starting to take notice of it. Here's another Spawn for this video that I think might be, I don't know if it's necessarily undervalued, but it might be a little underrated. Here we have Spawn 150. I believe it's the first appearance of the Man of Miracles, and I think a bunch of other things that escape me at the moment. But anyway, this book has several variant covers done by different artists. Some of them escape me, so I apologize for that, but I know Todd McFarlane did one. But this one's my favorite out of the, I don't know how many there are, but I know there's a few of them. But out of the few that I do know, this one's my favorite, and it's done by Jim Lee. I love this cover, and I think this one, most of the time, fetches a little bit more than the others. Maybe that's changed since I purchased it. I've had it for a little while now. This is one I really wanted for a long time when it comes to Spawn, and I was able to get it, I think, last year or whatever it was, as I was trying to fill some gaps in my Spawn collection. But yeah, I think other Spawn books get more attention. I mean, I know when you get into the Spawn 100s, the print runs a little lower on some of them, lower on certain ones than others. I don't know if that's the case with this one, but I don't think this gets enough attention. I think the ones that a lot of people look for when it comes to Spawn are the first Gunslinger Spawn, the first War Spawn, and several others like that, where people really are hunting for those, hope to find those in the long boxes, and have low print runs. But because of that, I think this one gets a little lost in the shuffle. Great cover. Yeah, Jim Lee did a great job. Now this one, again, people know of this one. Maybe people know of a lot of these books. But I still think that, the reason why I put it on here is because I think the cover is really cool, and I think the cover is a little odd when it comes to some other Showcase books. Showcase has had some pretty interesting covers, but I think this is one of the ones that really, from this time period, grabs people. But I don't think it's as well known. It's known, but I don't think it's as well known as others. Here we have Showcase versus 79. Showcase 79 Dolphin. Now, this has been in the community. People have shown this quite a few times, including myself. So it is known, but I don't know if it's as well known. But it's a unique cover, I think. It really is. It's a really unique cover. And when I first saw it, I think Nick showed, that was the first time I saw this cover. And, I've been collecting comics for a number of years. And I've never seen this cover until he had it on one of his videos. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty neat cover. I think it's well drawn, but it's just, there's something about this cover that just seems so, I don't want to say odd in a negative way. It's just something that's more alluring than odd, if that makes any sense. But that's the reason why I have it in a video like this. Here's another one. Again, this is a Detective Comics, and I think a lot of people, when it comes to 2000s Detective Comics, people think of the Joker cover, which is 880, and rightfully so. It's a great cover. It's iconic. But here's one. Now, I am not certain, again, you can correct me in the comments, I am not certain if this is a variant cover, but it's something that I don't see often. I've seen it a couple times. I don't see often, and I don't think a lot of people know about. But it's a great Walt Simonson cover. Detective Comics 866, is it? Yeah. And this is a cover swipe of what some people will say that is Detective Comics 69, the greatest comic book cover of all time. I don't know about that, but it's definitely an iconic one, a definitely iconic Joker one, where he's drawn just like this. This is a cover swipe, but of course Walt Simonson put his own artistic take on it, which I think is fabulous. And it's not just, the Joker obviously stands out, right? He's really cool and really wild in this photo, and the guns are really big and all that, but there are other things that you could take notice on this cover. Now, for instance, take a look at Batman. Look how well Batman's drawn there. He's just so awesome looking. The colors and the cape. It's a really well done cover, and I don't think a lot of people really know about this one. I don't know if it's a variant. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it's usually the 880 around that time period that gets the most attention. And here's another Batman. And again, people know about this one. Batman Almost Got Him. I talked earlier about Spawn, all the previews of Spawn, or the firsts, rather, of Spawn. Now, this is a Harley Quinn early appearance by Harley Quinn. And again, like the Crusader of Comics, I think this came with other things. Obviously I don't have those other things, whatever they are. I don't think it was a VHS tape like the Crusader of Comics, but this originally came packaged with some other stuff that is not here. But anyway, a lot of people argue that this is one of the first appearances or early appearances of Harley Quinn that predate her first appearance in Batman Adventures 12. I don't know. But I think it's a neat little thing, and I think it's kind of affordable. Now, my copy is like a 5.55, so it's not maybe as desirable as one that's much nicer, obviously, or one that's complete, but it's nice enough. It's nice enough to have, one of those preview books. And so I like getting those every now and then. I'm not a big hunter, or collector rather, of some of those early previews, like the early Wolverine preview and the Daredevil. Remember, there was like a Daredevil book. I don't remember what number it was that had a little advertising Wolverine was going to be in Incredible Hulk. And a lot of people like to get those little things. I'm not really that big into that, but for those that are, this is a pretty cool book to get. Pretty cool to find. And again, I saw it on a wall, just like Crusade of Comics. So it's known. It's not obscure as maybe it was a few years ago when a lot of people were not talking about it as much, or you didn't hear about it as much without social media. Here's another one. You may disagree with me on this, but again, it's one of those, I think, lost in the shuffle books, like some of the ones I mentioned earlier. We have Daredevil 158. This is the first Frank Miller, so a lot of people know about this. But I think Frank Miller, his run on Daredevil, is really, and I think most people would agree with this, Frank Miller's run on Daredevil is highly defined when it comes to Elektra. That's one of the most defining things about Frank Miller around that time period, which isn't too far from here, about a year later, right? It's Daredevil 168, so it's about a year later. But the focus is mainly on that era. The Elektra, the Kingpin, and when Bullseye was involved and all that stuff, and other things. So I think that this one is sort of, it's the first Frank Miller on Daredevil. People like it, but it's sort of like over there. And that's why I put this book in this video. A few more here. A couple SpiderMan coming up. This one's been getting, I think, some notice, but I think for a long time it didn't get any notice. And I was surprised when I found out that this character made her debut. I think it was in 1980, as it says right here. So here we have Amazing Spider-Man 210, the first appearance of Madam Web. Now, like I said, it's been getting more notice over the last year because I think there's been an announcement that Madam Web was going to be in some spider-related thing, maybe Into the Spider-Verse 2. I don't know what it is. But she's been getting noticed, and the book has been climbing up in value. But for the longest time, I think this book was like a $5, $10 book and a decent grade. My intro to Madam Web, now even as a collector back in the early 90s, I never heard of Madam Web or ever read any Madam Web-related Spider-Man stories at that time. I wasn't around a whole lot back then, but maybe that's why I wasn't exposed to her. But I didn't first hear of her until the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions game in 2009, 2010, and that's when I found out about Madam Web. I got that game and I saw characters that I knew of, like Kraven the Hunter and others. But when I saw Madam Web, I'm like, who's this? So that's when I first heard of Madam Web. And when I came back to the hobby, I was trying to get some of those characters that I never even knew about, and that's why I got this book. So, I think it was a little underrated for a long period of time. I don't think it's overrated right now. I don't think it's overvalued right now, so that's why it's here in this video. Two more. Last Spider-Man one. Here we have Amazing Spider-Man 136. This is the first time Harry Osborn becomes the Green Goblin. And again, I don't think it's as celebrated as other books around that era. And rightfully so. Around this era, within a year, 2 years ago, 2 years after, we had a bunch of different things. In particular, on 129, we had the first appearance of the Punisher. We have, what else do we have? Some other things. The death of Gwen Stacy, the death of the Green Goblin. So I think this one is sort of, people know it's important, but it's sort of like in the middle of all that stuff, or a little after that stuff. So it's not as valued as the other things from that era. So that's why I put it in this video. Pretty cool book to get. And the last one for this video, it's not a cheap book. It's hard to find. But again, maybe sometimes considered a little obscure to the average collector. We have Detective Comics 184. Now, I have a low-grade 2.0 copy. This is the first appearance of Firefly. Now, I know another Firefly showed up in Batman 126 or something like that. Well, this is the first appearance of the first Firefly. Now, Firefly, again, was one of those Batman villains I knew nothing about. It wasn't until I played one of those Arkham games that had come out 2009, 2010, or 2011, around that time, when I first found out about Firefly, I was like, oh wow, that's a pretty cool character, or at least I thought. Never heard of him. So again, a few years after that, when I got in the hobby, I went looking for Firefly, and I found him. But it's a hard book to find. And when you find it, it's not that cheap. But I think it is a little underrated. Not because Firefly is such a great character, but I think it's, again, one of those obscure Batman villains that every now and then pops up in some media, whether it's a new version of him in the comics, or you see him in the games that come out, and you take a look at it and say, wow, they really did a good job revamping that character, or they did a really good job representing that character in the video game, or in a TV series, a little animated series of some type. Not Batman the animated series, but you know what I mean. And it all goes back to, well, when this character first showed up, right here. And I think that's why sometimes, people go back and look for these things, but didn't really care about them without that extra media. And that's why I think it's a little obscure, a little underrated. But, when you do find it, even in low grades, it's kind of pricey. Actually, I want to upgrade this when I can. I'll sell this one off and get a nicer copy. Like I said, I think this is a 2.0. Maybe even a 1.8. It's a low grade. It's complete, but low grade. But sell this one off and get maybe a 4.0 if I could find one. But that's Underrated 8. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you see my point in some of these books. Maybe you don't. But again, it's all opinion. Hopefully I'll have another Underrated out. I'm not sure when, whether it's going to be this year or next year. If it's not this year, it'll definitely be out next year. But there'll be more Underrateds coming if you like this series, and I think a lot of people do. So I appreciate you watching, tuning in, and thank you again. Take care, everyone, and be safe.